rolling as quickly as possible. So I want to do that by saying good morning and welcome everyone. I'm Rachel Robinson, Chief Operating Officer of medtech, and it's absolutely wonderful to be sharing this morning slash evening slash wherever you are with you. Want to say thank you for joining us. We have a wonderful 2 hours chocked full of fantastic startups looking to make you the biggest fans possible of the work that they're doing. Right. You know, this event is one that we run every year in coordination with Susie and Alira and RedCrow. And we're so proud of it to give startups an opportunity to hit investors, partners, anyone who can help, you know, be a proponent of the gospel that they're sharing with you about the wonderful work they're doing to change the face of medtech and healthcare in general. So we thank you for your time. You're in for some fun. For those of you that don't know, half, or actually I would say 75% of the companies who are pitching today are part of our medtech Ignite Accelerator cohort for 2023. Super thrilled to have them and to be meeting all these other new companies as well. Ignite is an accelerator that was founded by medtech companies for medtech companies. So we do our best to gather a community of people to help guide startups in everything that we can possibly think of, from fundraising to regulatory to reimbursement, to understanding what's going on in market and strategy, introducing them to as many people as we possibly can in a 3-month span so that they can go on and do amazing things. In the past 5 years, we've taken about 60 companies through the program, and they've gone on to raise almost $200 million in follow-on funding, all due to their amazing work, not ours. We've had a few exits and some wonderful, wonderful teams. And this year's cohort is just absolutely fantastic. And I'm so thrilled for you to hear from them. So I'm going to stop talking and I'm going to turn things over to Susie. As I mentioned, Susie and Alira / RedCrow, she'll give you a little bit more of an input about who they are amazing partners of ours and sponsors of our program, along with Alira, Wilson Sonsini, Boyd Biomedical, and Agile Search. They're just amazing partners of ours who help put this program forward. And I want to go ahead and turn things over to her, who's going to run us through today.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Rachel. I am so excited to be here. I love Startup Demo Days. I love seeing all of the different companies and all the products that they've got that they're putting forward to make healthcare better for everyone. So I'm Susie Ingwall. I am the VP of Business Development at Alira Health and RedCrow. Just so you guys all know who RedCrow is, RedCrow is a crowdfunding platform for healthcare only. We recently just got our FINRA approval so that we can relaunch our platform, which has been sitting kind of dormant for the last little bit of time. But hopefully you're going to see a new raise go live this week. And we're really excited to start helping other companies get funding. So it's my pleasure to be here today and to work with all of these fantastic companies. I'm going to go ahead and just march right into it because we've got a packed agenda today. So our first presenter today is going to be PMD Solutions. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to them and let's look at their wonderful presentation.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. Let me share my screen and hope this goes flawlessly. So far, so good. And still good. Excellent. Guys, it's a pleasure to connect with you today. Thank you so much for taking the time. My name is Miles Murray. I'm the founder and CEO of PMD Solutions, an Irish-based medical device company who is revolutionizing respiratory monitoring by making every breath count. Our goal is to prevent respiratory failure in the acute setting and indeed in the community setting, releasing bed capacity, reducing readmissions, and obviously having an enormous impact on patients' lives and outcomes as a result. So we go by the mantra of making every breath count. It's how we operate. It's what we develop. We do this and realize this through the development of motion tolerant and continuous respiratory rate monitoring technology. And what we've been able to show over the last several years is that by getting respiratory rate right, you can trigger the right care for the right patient at the right time. And that leads to all sorts of amazing outcomes. In Ireland, we are the standard of care for any respiratory admission into an acute center requiring a mask for supportive ventilation. We were rolled out early during the COVID wave, the first wave that hit Ireland. We rolled out to 24 hospitals within 9 months. And since then, we have transformed from being a solution from COVID to a standard of care for any respiratory compromise admission, whether it's chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, COPD, pneumonia, influenza around winter flu, or otherwise. So where is this all going? Well, basically, unfortunately, influenza, winter flu pressure, and the increasing prevalence of respiratory disease in the community has just exploded. Over the last 20 years in the US alone, it's increased in terms of inpatient activity by 437%. Now, the real challenge here is not only the increased demand on operational resources for managing these patients, but the risk of those patients going wrong is also very large as well. So the incidence of adverse events in that patient cohort in the inpatient setting is up to 30%. And when you look at just the hospitals within Massachusetts alone, on average, about 10% of their A&E attendees are respiratory related. And the length of stay of their respiratory inpatients is actually quite wide. It's anywhere between 4 days to 8 days. So there's huge opportunity for improvement, not only in dealing with that flow and that throughput, but also dealing with the efficiency of their inpatient care to get them discharged earlier in a safe and effective way. Now, the global standard of care for measuring respiratory rate is manual counting. No one, from a technology perspective, has really developed a solution that allows the accurate and reliable measurement of this sentinel vital sign. Respiratory rate is the single and earliest indication of deterioration. And we've shown using RespirSense, by measuring it accurately, you can detect 12 hours earlier which patients are going to go into respiratory failure than the pulse oximeter or the standard of care. Now, the real reason why we're seeing deterioration on the floor is because manual counting, unfortunately, is inaccurate. 80% of measurements recorded are wrong, and it would actually lead to 41% of the time treatments being different if respiratory rate was right. And the two graphs you see here are just a show of evidence of that. On the left-hand side, we have back in 1846, Sir John Hutchinson, a surgeon, did a review of patient records and found that 95% of respiratory rates were one of four numbers: 18, 20, 22, 24. And, you know, over 170 years later, Badaway in Texas did a retrospective analysis and found the same thing. Nothing's really changed. So that's what PMD wants to do, is break that paradigm of manual counts, inaccurate measurements of respiratory rate, empower with accurate measurements so right care can be triggered by the right patient at the right time. Now, this is, I suppose, amplified by the world's over-reliance on pulse oximetry, SpO2. Now, that is brilliant technology when things are bad and you want to watch them go worse. They're not so great in detecting early signs of decline, because for the very simple physiological response, if I breathe faster, my blood oxygen will be fine. So if I'm not measuring more effort of breathing, I am missing the earliest sign of decline. And this shows you that 12 hours earlier, RespirSense can detect decline ahead of SpO2. So RespirSense is a revolution in respiratory rate monitoring. It's a body-worn wearable, directly measures the mechanics of breathing of the chest and the abdomen in such a way that we can remove all motion, all non-breathing motion. So talking, walking artifact, coughing, all that sort of stuff that would cause false alarms and other technologies, we don't have that issue with RespirSense. And it's because of that reliability, we have that 12 hours earlier indication of a respiratory failure prospect in an inpatient and outpatient setting. So a snapshot about PMD, we're across 25 hospitals in Ireland and the UK. We monitor 40,000 patients a year. We have now shown we can reduce the average length of stay of our patient cohorts nationally by 1 day, which is a phenomenal outcome. We are reviewed by NICE in the UK, but in terms of use in acute and community settings, we have been able to show we can reduce the readmission rate of severe COPD patients in the community by over 50%. That is just phenomenal. We show 300% return on investment to Irish virtual wards or hospital home wards for COPD over 12 weeks. And most importantly, this technology will address the 41% of the time deterioration is missed. So being partners and proud cohortees of the MassMedic program this year, in addition to our affiliations with NHSX as an NHS Innovation Fellow, NICE for guidance and demonstration that we are standard of care, we are a thought leader in this space, NHS Innovation or Digital Transformation in Ireland, and also being part of the Digital Health Accelerator in London. So in a nutshell, let me conclude by highlighting why adopt us. Number one, winter pressures increase 80% of respiratory throughput between August and January every year. It's a really stressful time of year, and there's a real huge influx of patients requiring urgent and emergency care. 36% of COPD discharges come back within the first 30 days. So there's a huge opportunity to keep these patients at home by proactive engagement in the community setting. And we've seen an enormous 4x increase in respiratory activity anyway. So this is an area and a pathway that innovation could really support acute care hospitals on. And by deploying our technology in an average healthcare system in Massachusetts, we've been able to show that we can increase the amount of patients going through the inpatient setting in terms of 500 additional admissions per year. And that will generate over $10 million per year in improving outcomes, improving patient throughput, and having a return on investment for that implementation of a transformational device and a new way of thinking around the clinical care pathway of respiratory admissions. So on that, I really welcome you to reach out, either direct to myself via email, come join the conversation on Twitter/X, and really appreciate the time today, guys, and hope to talk to you in the coming weeks. Thanks very much.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Miles. We've got just about a minute left for Miles. If anybody has any questions, please feel free to put it in the chat or in the Q&A. And in the meantime, too, if you think of a question after he's done presenting and someone else has moved on, please feel free to put that in the chat as well. We'll make sure that everybody is keeping an eye on that. We did have one question in the chat that's not about your company, so I wanted to see if there's anything else anybody had first. I don't see anything yet, so I'll go ahead and answer the one question in the chat. There was a question that was asking if RedCrow was limited to New England startups. No, it is open to anywhere in the US, Canada, and even other countries. So super excited. If anyone wants to talk to me about it later, they're welcome to. And Miles, if you want to change, and for all of our presenters, if you guys want to change your name in your box so that people know exactly who you are and how to get a hold of you, or want to direct a question directly to you, they can do that. And with that, we're going to move on to our next presenter, which is BioSuperior. So Russ, take it away.
Okay, can you see my screen?
Absolutely.
Wonderful. Okay, so my name is Russ Lehrman. I'm the CEO of BioSuperior. I greatly appreciate the opportunity to speak to you today about our technology. I'm going to minimize some icons on the side here so I can see my screen. Okay, so what is BioSuperior about? We are on a mission. We are developing effective therapeutics for really serious respiratory disease, and we've developed a drug delivery platform in order to achieve this. Our first indication is bronchopulmonary dysplasia. This is, simply said, lung inflammation in preterm infants. And as you can see on this graph, when a baby is born 28 weeks after conception, a significant percentage of them have this condition, this lung inflammation that's referred to as bronchopulmonary dysplasia. As you get younger in gestational age, the numbers go up. So by 25 weeks, you get over 50% of these babies developing this serious lung disease. This leads to death in many cases, and in many other cases, it leads to lifelong disability, very significant burden on human health care system. There is no treatment currently for BPD. And so that's what we're about here. This is our first play. This is a two-step solution that we have evolved to take care of this issue. And I'll explain why we do that in a second. First, we are making this synthetic lung surfactant, and then we are adding in an anti-inflammatory therapeutic for the treatment of BPD. And we're referring to this as BioSurf TX. The lung surfactant is important because it spreads over the inner lining of the lung in the deep lung, and it distributes the drug and also aids in the transport of any therapeutic that you might add into that material into the cells so that they can have their therapeutic effect. Now, this has already been clinically demonstrated. We already know that if you just put lung surfactant into the lung or the anti-inflammatory med into the lung, you get little or no activity with respect to BPD. It requires the combination in order to get the activity. And this has been shown in several clinical trials. I'm showing you the data from one of these trials on the bottom part of this slide. Now, note that I said synthetic lung surfactant, and there are animal-derived lung surfactants that are on the market, but much like insulin and other products, and really it's the history of the pharma industry. They initially get started with a animal-derived material, even in some cases human-derived material, and then whenever there's the opportunity to switch to a synthetic version, they do. And the reasons are many. You know, the animal-derived, they're costly to produce. If they're animal proteins and such, they are capable of inducing immune reactions. The variability batch to batch is huge. You have to maintain an animal herd. This is becoming an increasing ecological issue. And then there's always the potential of transmitting infectious agents, which are going to be harmful to the patient. So there's every reason to want to move to a synthetic version. People have been trying to make this synthetic lung surfactant for 20 years, and they haven't been able to. And this is one of the key things that we have done. This is patent pending. We have figured out how to make the key protein that, when combined with phospholipid, is having the activity of lung surfactant. Okay, so it's a small, compact protein that makes all the difference in the world in the ability to both spread material across the lung and also then aid in the transport of materials across the cell surface into the cells. And we have demonstrated this. So we have compared all the essential properties of our material versus these animal-derived lung surfactants. And on this graph, low is good. Okay, so one of the key issues here is minimizing the surface tension of these materials. You see that our BioSurf is every bit as good as the animal-derived lung surfactant in lowering that surface tension, so much better than when you mix phospholipids alone or add in cholesterol. These are not effective as lung surfactants. And we have a cellular assay where we plate the cells, we grow the cells, and then layer on top of them this lung surfactant with fluorescently tagged materials. They are therapeutics or other small molecules. And if you put those fluorescently tagged materials on the surface without any lung surfactant or just the phospholipid combination, very little is getting in. But either with the animal-derived material or our BioSurf, you get a significant equivalent amount of material transported into the cells. This is not affected when we add in the anti-inflammatories. So this dots here, this figure looks the same whether or not you add in the anti-inflammatory. And I want to point out here that we've been very efficient with our resources. We've developed the technology on $850,000. You know, and this has come from grants from the National Science Foundation, the March of Dimes, our own funding, and we've used that to manufacture the protein, manufacture the BioSurf itself, do the testing I just described, and we have filed multiple patents. So we've got one PCT, we've got another provisional. We're developing more intellectual property as we speak. I also want to point out that currently we're involved with California Life Sciences. This is a selective program. They do not provide equity, but they provide ample other support. We have a dynamite group of advisors that are working with us right as we speak on developing various aspects of our business. So where are we? We are in the process now of wanting to scale up the manufacture of this material, demonstrating this in an animal model, rats and then sheep. And then we want to optimize the therapeutic activity. This is essential because the higher the therapeutic activity, the lower the development costs are going to be once we reach the clinic. So it's much easier to demonstrate efficacy when you're getting a 40 to 60% response rate or more relative to 5 or 10%. So that's very important. And that'll be followed by our pre-IND meeting with the FDA, the IND enabling non-clinical safety tox that is necessary for any IND, and we'll be filing that IND. I'll also note that this is eligible for orphan drug designation, and that will be most helpful as well. Even a PRV, which is a big deal grant program through the US government, is possible with this particular therapeutic. And I also want to point out that this is really a drug delivery platform. So any lung inflammation in adults is going to be a target for our technology. So that can include ARDS, it can include COPD, asthma, and other therapeutics for the targeting of lung cancer, adenocarcinoma, idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis, arterial hypertension. All of these can be targets for our technology. We intend to both license out our technology to other companies that can develop their drugs, or keep this in-house and develop these on our own. This is our team currently. We have a group of very experienced and very expert scientists in project management in the field. We're highly complementary in our skill set. We're working with, even outside of the CLS program, we've developed very significant advisory capacity with neonatologists, people that have great experience in the biotech industry, and particularly in respiratory med. These are our academic collaborators. They've been hugely important in helping us develop our technology. And I just want to thank you again. We really encourage you to consider us in making us meet our next milestones so that we can revolutionize respiratory medicine and truly save lives. Thank you so much, and I'm very happy to take questions.
Thank you so much, Russ. So we've got about 30 seconds left for questions, but there's a question in here that says, is BioSurf a powder formulation? Is it delivered by a DPI?
It is not a DPI, and currently with these babies, the current standard of care is by instilling lung surfactant. This is for a different indication called respiratory distress syndrome, and it was actually on an early slide. Installation means that you're dropping a catheter down into the lung of the baby, squirting in using a syringe, the liquid, and then rolling the baby around. We actually have a early stage relationship with a company that is capable of modifying nebulizers for the delivery of lung surfactants, and we expect to see that develop over time. So we intend to go in that direction as well.
Fantastic. Great. Thank you so much, Russ. We don't have any more time for questions for this one, but if you guys do have additional questions for Russ, please feel free to put it in the Q&A, and he can answer those right there in the app. And with that, we're going to move on to Guidewire RX.
Thank you. So my name is Raj Shine. I'm the CEO of Guidewire RX. My company is focused on preventing amputation with AI-driven detection of peripheral vascular disease, or PVD. Our vision is a world without amputation, and our team is uniquely qualified to help make this happen. Luke Higgins and I are interventional radiologists in the greater Boston area. We're clinical experts in the diagnosis and management of peripheral vascular disease, or PVD. I trained at Miami Cardiac and Vascular Institute. In addition to my background in engineering and medicine, I also have an MBA. Luke trained at Stanford, Johns Hopkins, Harvard, and MIT. He's our chief medical officer, and Prahlad Menon is our chief technology officer, who's currently faculty at Carnegie Mellon University. So here's the problem. Every region of color on this map represents a failure or an amputation. There are over 154,000 amputations related to peripheral vascular disease in the United States every year, and over 1 million globally. That's one amputation every 3.5 minutes in the US and one every 20 seconds globally. Amputations are associated with high complication rates, hospital readmissions, permanent disability requiring long-term care, and severe depression. They're a reflection of poor patient outcomes, inefficient, and costly care. Medicare alone spends over $381 billion on diabetic patients with peripheral vascular disease every year. What's shocking is that 85% of diabetes-related lower extremity amputations are completely preventable with early diagnosis and timely management. So it's clear that there's a failure to diagnose and appropriately manage these patients by our healthcare system. Several factors contribute to unnecessary amputations, but let's look at one of these factors in more detail, which is how we as radiologists diagnose PVD and why it's difficult. So on an average day, a radiologist like Luke or myself would look at 50 patient CT scans. A CT scan can contain 4,000 images, and we have about 6 minutes to perform our assessment. That's reviewing 11 images a second. It's absurd, but that's the reality of the high-pressure environment we practice in today. We're looking for emergencies, things that can harm the patient in hours or minutes, if not treated. PVD is a chronic disease, often missed, underreported, and poorly characterized. And this leads to amputations, costing the US healthcare system billions every year. So this is an example from our data set in which the radiologist missed a significant narrowing in the artery. So the early marker or early evidence of PVD is present on a few of these 4,000 images, but synthesizing subtle findings on multiple images to arrive at a diagnosis is really difficult. Hospitals lose money on amputations due to high complication rates and readmissions. If a hospital performs one amputation a week, the $90,000 figure shown here translates to a cost of close to $5 million for the year. And that's just the cost of the hospital. So if only we had a tool that could rapidly identify PVD, it would lead to early diagnosis, timely treatment, avoided amputations, and avoided costs to the healthcare system as well as the patient. So our solution addresses this failure to identify a disease. We've developed an AI software platform for radiologists and hospitals that can be integrated into a hospital's PAC system. It's called Vascular Assist, and it saves limbs and lives. It's an AI-driven PVD identification tool, which uses a vision transformer, similar to the technology used in ChatGPT. Our product uses a natural language model applied to medical images for the early identification of PVD. Our solution offers a strong value proposition for all key stakeholders. For patients, our technology saves limbs and improves quality of life. For hospitals that are our major revenue stream, our technology reduces inpatient costs, including uncompensated costs, reduces readmission risk, and creates new outpatient revenue opportunities. So newly identified patients with PVD can undergo surveillance, medical management, and appropriate minimally invasive interventions to prevent amputation. Radiologists get a tool to help them cope with impossible workloads and reduce burnout, and payers see reduced claims for costly amputations. Our product can provide these benefits because it's highly accurate, fast, and secure. AI in medical imaging is an emerging, fast-growing market poised for tremendous growth over the next several years. The US represents about 45% of the worldwide market. Our current intellectual property and product offering is based on CT, seen here in green, and we're working on extending our PVD detection product to other modalities like ultrasound, seen here in blue. So the compound annual growth rate is 37% over the next 8 years. We're not alone in targeting this market, but there's an important difference between us and other players. Radiology AI companies right now are primarily focused on acute care or emergency scenarios for timely reporting and prioritization of studies. For example, they're looking for bleeding in the brain, stroke, blood clots in the lung. Guidewire RX is helping the diagnosis of PVD, which no company is currently addressing. Our solution is better for the following reasons. We're helping radiologists identify a disease process that they may not necessarily be looking for, thereby avoiding the missed or underreported finding. Most other companies are helping radiologists look for things that they're already looking for and actually pretty good at, like stroke and bleeding in the brain. We're also identifying multi-bed vascular disease patients for life with significant downstream revenue opportunities for every stakeholder. So we're addressing a white space in the radiology market that boosts our customers' revenue potential. It's a long and fat tail, and that's a good reason to invest. As we've discussed, Guidewire RX is positioned in an important, lucrative, and high-growth market. PVD is an important public health issue affecting 230 million people worldwide, and amputations are preventable. We have a unique value proposition. Our AI solution offers strong value to all stakeholders with many natural allies. Our team has specialized imaging expertise and a growing IP portfolio. We have 3 provisional patents and 4 in development. Our AI solution is cutting edge, accurate, and scalable. We're data rich with a relationship with a company called VRAD, or Virtual Teleradiologic. It's one of the largest teleradiology companies in the country, supplying robust heterogeneous data to Guidewire RX from over 2,100 hospitals. So in summary, we're uniquely positioned to attack this high value, high growth market. We've bootstrapped till now to make significant progress, and now we're looking to bring in capital to launch our solution. We're seeking $3 million in a seed round for an 18-month trajectory to build a technical team and execute stage product development of what will become a what will become a family of software-assisted medical devices. It'll also include expanding industry partnerships, testing and validation, as well as an FDA 510(k) application and clearance. So we'd love to have you join us in this journey to prevent amputations and provide much needed value to patients in the medical system. Our vision is to live in an amputation-free world, and we believe we can get there with Guidewire RX.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Raj. We've got just about a minute and a half for questions. And Andrew has asked in the chat, when detected early, how is circulation fixed and how effective is that?
So circulation is fixed with a procedure called angiography, which I actually perform routinely in my practice. So it's a minimally invasive procedure that involves getting in from a single access, and we could do a balloon angioplasty, we could place a stent, we could do something called an atherectomy, which involves modifying the plaque in a blood vessel, or something called intravascular lithotripsy, which involves breaking apart the calcium in the blood vessel itself. So anything that improves luminal patency of the blood vessel and improves flow from a minimally invasive access is really what we do for peripheral arterial disease or peripheral vascular disease, and that prevents amputation.
Perfect. And then we've got another question asking what kind of IP protection you have. I think I heard you have 3 patents.
Yes, we have 3 provisional patents and 4 more in development right now.
Fantastic. I don't see any further questions in the Q&A, but please keep an eye on it in case someone else has additional questions for you. And with that, we're going to go ahead and move on to CranioSense. Thank you so much, Raj.
Thank you.
All right, can you hear me? Can you see me? Can you see the screen? Everything's check marked. All right, cool. All right, so let me unfortunately minimize your beautiful faces. So thank you guys for having us here. My name is Ryan Myers. I am the CEO and co-founder of CranioSense, where we are bringing intracranial hypertension, which is too much pressure on your brain, into the light by simplifying the diagnostic process really across the clinical spectrum. So accidents can happen to anyone, anywhere, anytime. And at 55% of the traumatic deaths, traumatic brain injury is by far the most life-altering and terrifying option. Interestingly enough, it's not necessarily the initial insult, but rather the time to treatment of the secondary damage due to elevated swelling and pressure that causes lasting neurological damage, especially if left untreated for just 2 hours. So this actually makes traumatic brain injury both complex, but also fast moving, even under ideal conditions with the best neurosurgeons and the best neurocritical care in the country. But unfortunately, for about half of the 5 million patients that go to the emergency room each year with symptoms of traumatic brain injury, they do so in rural and suburban America, where there's no neurological support on staff for them. This mismatch between patient complexity and caregiver availability has led to egregious misdiagnosis rates, hospital transfer rates, and ultimately about 3 times the death rate compared to their urban counterparts. This is primarily because our physicians are out there working with tools that are only about 60 to 70% accurate at diagnosing intracranial hypertension, leaving the only truly accurate option as a hole in your head or a hole in your spine for direct measurement. But there is hope. If we can increase clinical certainty and decrease triage times, regardless of the clinical environment, we can make a dent in what is often referred to as the holy grail. What is the silent epidemic known as traumatic brain injury. So how do we get there, right? How do we combat traumatic brain injury? Well, we need to deliver tools that are accurate, but that can also be used by anyone, anywhere, anytime. That's why we're developing a familiar to use, quick to apply, and rapid to interpret near-infrared light-based device that is able to triage whether intracranial hypertension is present in a patient and continuously monitor for its development and treatment effectiveness thereafter. We do this, our innovative and patented approach does this by looking at the blood vessels in your brain under what is an unknown pressure. And then we compare those to the blood vessels outside of your brain where we actually do know the pressure in your forehead, your finger, and your ear. This makes each patient their own pressure reference point and removes many of the confounding factors that occur when just looking at the brain by itself. The cornerstone feature of our algorithm is supported by decades of publications and multiple craniosense-led clinical studies. This makes us faster. We can be applied in minutes by nurses. It makes us better. We can reach 20 times the number of patients as those invasive sensors with higher accuracy than the current non-invasive alternatives. And we are cheaper at 1/10 the cost of those invasive sensors. This problem and the solution are supported by a really passionate and qualified team. My co-founder and I have about 5 years experience together working on the basic research that is underneath this product. I have a PhD in bioengineering out of a neurophysiology lab. My background is primarily on the industry side in strategy, science, and business development for medical devices. My co-founder, Chris, has 10 years at Boston Sci, 10 years at J&J, and then 10 years in startups and small businesses, all primarily on operations and product development. Combined, we have about 45 years of experience in med devices, but that experience is supplemented by an amazing group of external advisors and clinical collaborators, some of which are shown here. And our customers are right there with us with the passion. The need was routinely clear to 50 stakeholders that we surveyed. We're hearing things like Holy Grail, 6 vital sign, and mobile stroke game changer. In fact, about 95% of those that we interviewed said that they would buy today if it was available. And this traction is primarily because of how flexible our tool is to incorporate in any traumatic brain injury workflow, whether that's upfront or down the line post-CT. And also because we stay away from those pesky capital expense budgets. The benefit of this outreach was actually that we have immense clinical traction now. We've filled out our current study and have added some high impact sites to our pilots in our de novo study next year. We're looking to add about 3 more sites prior to going to that de novo study. And even though we're not going to be out until about 2026, we've added multiple sites interested in commercial pilots and indication expansion thereafter. So this is truly a platform for anything that has intracranial hypertension attached to it. But it's really no surprise that doctors want better solutions. Today's options are either fast, cheap, and inaccurate, or they're accurate, but then they're expensive, invasive, and specialized, and therefore really not diagnostic in nature at all. In addition to being faster and cheaper, we've been able to demonstrate that our minimally viable product can accurately differentiate traumatic brain injury patients with too much pressure from those that have normal pressure, and far better than any of the current non-invasive alternatives by comparing both to gold standard pressure sensors. We intend to capture this momentum, this clinical validation momentum, by confirming the accuracy in our de novo population during our seed round that we just opened. Within the ED, the emergency department, our first product, the de novo pathway medical device, will support 3 major patient profiles that are really difficult to diagnose, but routinely show up at these emergency departments. These pain points are amplified in our first call point, which is suburban and rural hospitals, where, again, about half of the traumatic brain injury patients present, but only about 6% of our neurologists work in the US. Capturing about 65% of these patients leads us to help 1.1 million patients each year have better neurological outcomes. Patients that routinely cost the emergency room about $2,000 to $3,000 each. And this is just the beginning with large secondary indications thereafter. We do have a measured roadmap to achieve these market projections and some significant exit opportunities. We are anticipating reaching market and first revenue by 2026 with some of those pilots. We are seeking a $2 million seed round to reduce the highest risks, which happen to be clinical validation, regulatory, and reimbursement. And then a subsequent Series A will allow us to explore various exit opportunities with investors by tranching the rounds accordingly. So we do have a round open today as a first tranche of that $2 million seed round. We have opened a convertible note to capture a lot of the angels that are already coming on board. Happy to talk to anybody about that, but it will allow us to hit significant clinical, regulatory, and product development milestones at the beginning of 2024. So thank you, RedCrow, Alira, and also Ignite for having us, and happy to answer any questions.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Ryan. Great presentation. I don't see any questions in the chat, but we do have about 1.5 minutes if anyone wants to add any, or if you'd like to add any once he's done speaking, we will make sure that we keep an eye on it. With that, we will go ahead and move on to BrainBot.
Great. Thank you so much. Let me just share my screen. Okay, can everybody see this?
Yes.
All right, well, terrific, thanks. So thank you so much for having us. I'm Shelley Weisberg. I'm president and co-founder of BrainBot, and we are building a rehab companion to help people suffering from concussion get back to life. So I've worked as an occupational therapist for over 10 years, helping people recover from concussions and get back to their everyday activities at home, at school, at work, and more. And then I got my own concussion. It took me about 8 months to recover. It was a lonely, frustrating, and expensive journey, and I had to juggle both my rehab and my duties as a working parent. So I have a unique perspective of what it means to recover from a concussion. I understand that rehab fails because we can't manage our symptom triggers. I see that patients often struggle with their recovery because of inaccessible, unaffordable care, and they have the challenge of effectively managing their recovery when their symptoms flare outside of the time that they're with their providers. As an occupational therapist, I know that activity pacing is the cornerstone of recovery, but it's a demanding process. We ask our patients to track their symptoms and activity using pen and paper, and we manually analyze the data to prepare a recovery plan. This is the current standard of care. It's time-consuming, it's imprecise, and it's very difficult for a human to uncover the types of insights that AI can. Plus, OTs aren't always accessed, and the vast majority of providers don't have the knowledge base, the time, or the tools to effectively guide a patient's recovery plan, not to mention the minutiae of everyday life. From a payer standpoint, concussions are expensive, and they cost about $5,000 per patient for the 3 million annual cases. So without an effective way to help people return to their normal activities, the recovery gets prolonged and their healthcare and disability costs increase. So that's why I built BrainBot. BrainBot tells the untold story of symptoms and function outside of provider visits. It helps users learn and mitigate their symptom triggers, and it guides them back to their normal routines. We use a points-based activity pacing framework, a proprietary algorithm, and AI-generated insights to empower our users and clinicians to improve their approach to everyday activities. So users can finally regain control of their symptoms, their lifestyle, and their recovery trajectory, while clinicians can finally access the data they need to implement precise and accurate treatment programs. So we already have a fully functioning live MVP, which is being used by patients and providers today. We have one study completed by Canada's top-rated university, the University of Toronto, and they found that BrainBot is already incredibly sticky, with 75% of our participants active for an average of 7 days per week over a 4-week period. So we're seeing, even with the MVP, it's providing enormous value to our patients. We have 3 studies planned for 2024 to continue this progress. Now, there's a massive opportunity to disrupt the occupational therapy industry, which is a $30 billion market in the US alone. So not only can BrainBot substantially lower the cost and provide better care, but it can also make recovery strategies readily available to those who wouldn't otherwise access OT services. What's also really interesting is, for the first time ever, by late 2024, occupational therapists will be able to operate across state lines to service over 130 million people. So this will really amplify our ability to scale. So we're going to start by targeting concussions first. This is where I experienced the need for a better solution, both professionally and personally. And so we'll build out a scalable platform that we can quickly leverage to other health conditions when the time is right. In terms of our go-to-market strategy, we start out by targeting the patients. They're the ones who feel the deepest pain during this recovery process. We'll use clinical partnerships and a social media-focused approach to gain traction early on. Once we've demonstrated user traction, we've gained sufficient insights about our users, and we've completed the next research study, we can begin to scale using 2 methods. So number 1, having our patients share reports with their providers gives us a warm opening for us to directly engage with providers. Many of these providers can then bill workers' compensation carriers and auto insurers for their time. And we've seen this strategy work really well in Ontario, in Canada, where we are. Next, we can target high potential early adopters, and this includes platforms that already have large user bases who could benefit from concussion-specific platforms. So this could include employee benefit platforms and virtual first health providers. And we can also target institutions such as universities, colleges, and veteran affairs. These are institutions who have large populations of people who suffer from concussions, but right now they may not have adequate care. So within 24 to 36 months, as our partners complete the next phase of research, we anticipate being able to sell into payers, value-based care providers, and self-insured employers. And we will earn revenue through licensing, tailored contracts, and a per month per member fee. Now, we have an incredible and credible team. My co-founder, Adam, has extensive business and legal expertise navigating complex regulatory environments. You know me, and our CTO, Charlie, has over 40 years of AI expertise with over 20 startups and 7 exits under his belt. We also have a team that includes a fully dedicated AI developer and folks with expertise in product research and data science. We are also very proud to be supported by world-leading experts and institutions, amongst which are Canada's largest research hospital and top-rated university, the MedTech Ignite Accelerator, which brings us here today, and some of the world's foremost leaders in concussion care, as well as digital and occupational health in the US. So we have been bootstrapping for the last 4 years, and we are raising a pre-seed round to cover costs for product development, research, and marketing. Our goal is to demonstrate traction with both patients and providers, complete our next round of research, which will demonstrate efficacy and show a clear path to revenue generation to unlock a compelling valuation for our seed round of financing. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you for having us. Please feel free to reach out if you'd like to learn more. I'll mention that my co-founder, Adam, will be in the Boston area tomorrow and Thursday, and New York on Friday if anybody wants to meet with him in person. Either way, please feel free to reach out and connect. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Great presentation, Shelley. We do have a couple of minutes for questions. I don't see any in the Q&A, but if you guys do have any, please feel free to add them. So with that, we'll go ahead and we're going to move right on to Maureen from Actuated Medical. Maureen, we cannot hear you.
Yeah, I'm getting my camera. Hold on one
There
second.
you go. No worries.
I'm getting here. Oh. There it is. Okay. I was like, where did that button go? All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Maureen Mulvihill, and I'm president and CEO of Actuated Medical. And I'm here today to talk about our NeuroGlider inserter and our SonoShield Defender. We are developing tools to realize the promise of neural devices in treating neurological conditions. Why are there so many whys in the world? Why can't a grandfather play with his grandson? This is my father-in-law, Brooks. And when my daughter was 2 years old, she'd climb into a Rubbermaid bucket and he'd pick her up and he'd swing her around the living room and they would just be laughing and having a great time. But just 2 years later, when my son was ready for the bucket ride, Brooks was just not confident in his strength to put his grandson in that bucket and swing him around the living room. And why was that? Well, Brooks was suffering from Parkinson's disease. And over the next 10 years, as the symptoms of Parkinson's got worse, the medications they were giving him were causing his quality of life to just deteriorate. Patients suffering from neurological conditions deserve better treatments. There's a lot of really smart people looking at how to treat neurological conditions by understanding the brain. These are just the sampling of certain brain implants. As you can see, there's a dime in the background, and we have a single shank electrode, a multiple shank electrode, and then a matrix array. But these electrodes are difficult to insert, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But we know that treating neurological conditions costs the US healthcare system over $800 billion. We know the government's putting significant funds into understanding the brain to treat these illnesses. We know that 100 million Americans are affected by neurological conditions, but 16 million of that 100 are candidates for brain-computer interfaces. But the first limitation to these brain implants is getting them inserted. The other technologies or standard procedure out there uses high force air to drive the electrodes into the brain, which causes significant tissue damage, and they don't hit the target. There's other implants that are very more similar to the mechanical properties of the brain, but they're almost impossible to insert without a secondary shuttle. And that's where Actuated Medical comes in. We've developed the NeuroGlider inserter, and by using gentle ultrasonic or sound waves, we're inserting these electrodes with less tissue damage and greater precision. So as you look at the video, you can see with NeuroGlider, the electrode goes into the brain tissue, but without NeuroGlider, it just kind of bows and doesn't break through the brain surface. We know with NeuroGlider that we have less dimpling. And what that means is with that less dimpling, we can get to the precise depth that we want to get to. With the control technology, with that dimpling, you don't get the depth you want, but with NeuroGlider, you do. We're also compatible with over 15 different electrode geometries out there right now, and our competition's only compatible with one. We're working with premier scientists in Europe, US, and China, and one of the most outstanding researchers coming out of UT Dallas, where what they're doing with NeuroGlider is going to change the way that this research is done. The second major limitation to seeing the promise of these neural devices is the inability to maintain long-term patency. It means their lifetime is limited. So what happens over time is the implant is inserted and the scar-forming cells encapsulate those electrodes so they don't work as long. So it's like a foreign body and it's trying to push them out. It's just like when you got something in your finger and your body's trying to push it out. With SonoShield Defender, we're using gentle sound waves just that are pulsated around the shank of that electrode, and it's minimizing those scar-forming cells so they're not encapsulating the electrode as much. And so you can see by this cartoon why by using SonoShield Defender that encapsulation is not so great. If you look at the images here with using SonoShield Defender, that we don't have as many of these scar-forming cells, and so that encapsulation is not as great. And then looking at work coming out at University of Pittsburgh in TK Kozai's lab, he showed that after 4 weeks, there was significant difference in the electrode's lifetime for the ones that were treated with SonoShield Defender. So we're making a difference there. In Actuated as a whole, we have 41 issued patents, US and international, and 12 of these patents surround our neural device portfolio. Our regulatory plan is we're seeking a breakthrough designation, and that will allow us to apply for the FDA's Total Product Lifecycle Advisory Program. This program was just expanded to neural devices in October, and we're very excited about that. We know that we're looking at growing markets. The brain-computer interface market is somewhere around 2.4 billion projected for 2026. Our strategic plan uses non-dilutive capital. With that non-dilutive capital, we're building our preclinical safety and efficacy data. We'll also be applying for that breakthrough designation, which will allow us to apply for the TAP program. The TAP program brings in FDA consultants and advisors and helps with regulatory strategy, reimbursement strategy, strategic partners. And the idea is to get the first in man much faster than it's currently done. The idea is to get that first in man study done, then seek another $10 million equity investment to support a randomized clinical study. With superior results, then we'll be licensing our NeuroGlider technology, our SonoShield Defender technology to a brain-computer interface company. And then once that happens, we believe Actuated would be acquired for our neural device expertise. We are product innovators. We are medtech innovators. We were founded in 2006. We're ISO 13485, which means we can manufacture our devices in-house. We have 22 people that love coming to work. Our leadership team is myself, President and CEO. We have a Director of R&D, a Director of Quality and Regulatory, a reimbursement leader, and then a neural device leader. All of us are focused on getting these devices to the clinic as fast as we can. Today, we're seeking a $2.5 million equity investment. That equity investment will go into supporting the exit of several of our other technologies. Right now, our 2Clear systems in about 15 different hospitals. We're building sales, looking for that exit of that. The GripTrack system was FDA cleared last Friday. And the idea is that exits, those profits get reinvested. Our baby gentle stick is currently being clinically tested at Nationwide Children's Hospital and also Penn State Children's Hospital. And the idea is that also exits. When each one of those 3 products exits, a partial amount of those profits are reinvested into Actuated, and they support the growth of our neural device portfolio. Our revenue scale is projected to go increasing up until 2029. Right now, it's based on a sales model, product sales. But as each one of those products exits, we will optimize this financial projection to include those actuals. The idea is that in 2029, that we will have the neural device portfolio acquired. We are developing tools to realize the promise of neural devices in treating neurological conditions. Thank you so much.
Great job, Maureen. Really impressive. Do we have any questions? I don't see anything in the chat, or in the Q&A, but please feel free to add questions if you have them. And with that, we will go ahead and move on to Mara Bio.
Thanks, Susie, and thanks to Ignite for the opportunity to present as I bring up my screen here. And it's great to be involved with, you make sure you can see, with all these great companies. Okay, so we're raising $6 million to advance an autoimmune breakthrough in women's and children's health, namely the detection and treatment of maternal autoantibody-related autism. Now, it's likely that we all know a family that has a child affected with autism. And in fact, autism is one of the top concerns that women have when planning to have a child. And autism is not simply neurodiversity, it's a neurodevelopmental disorder that is caused by biological differences in the brain that can be very severe. In fact, it's 160 times more likely for an autistic child to drown versus a non-autistic child. 50% less life expectancy for an autistic individual versus that of a non-autistic individual, and 14 times more likely for an autistic child to have epileptic seizures versus a non-autistic child. Now, there's two problems. Number one, the autism prevalence is increasing. At as recently as the year 2000, the prevalence was thought to be 1 in 150 births. Most recently, this past year, it's 1 in 36, with a trajectory to the end of this decade of 1 in 20. That is a 600% increase in just our lifetime. The second problem is the time to diagnose and the time to treat just takes too long. Symptoms are evident in a child as young as 12 months, but it takes over 4 years through a watch and wait diagnostic odyssey for a child to get diagnosed and get into clinical treatment. And all of this critical time is lost. Now, this is resulting in unsustainable cost on society. $3.6 million per individual, $7.6 trillion on society, unless we bend the curve on this increasing prevalence. So Mara Bio is going to address both of these problems, both by reducing the prevalence and also by the earlier detection of autism through our fundamental breakthrough, which is discovered that with a 99% accuracy, that 1 in 5 women, or about 20% of women with a child diagnosed with autism, test positive for a distinct set of maternal autoantibodies. These autoantibodies cross the placenta during development. They react and bind to specific brain proteins, disrupting normal brain development and resulting in autism manifestations. This unique subtype of autism is termed maternal autoantibody-related autism, or MARA, and it does correlate with more severe forms. Now, I'm not going to go through this slide, but this slide is to remind me to tell you that this is not science fiction. The biology of MARA over 15 years of research is well understood. It's been reproduced in animal models. All 8 brain proteins affected with these antibodies are associated with neurodevelopment. We've used AI and machine learning to identify these patterns, and we have patented these patterns, which are 2 or more of these 8 antibodies. certain of which increase significantly the odds of the more severe phenotype, which is autism plus intellectual disability. And we've completed proof of concept studies in animal models showing that we can reduce the circulation of these pathogenic antibodies with therapeutic agents. So our test will enable clinically actionable interventions for families, first on the upper left-hand side of pre-pregnancy testing, determining the likelihood of having a child, because this is a simple blood test in the mother. And then secondly, on the upper right-hand side, early childhood testing at birth, because we can detect the antibodies in newborn heel sticks during early development prior to these symptoms developing, to determine the likelihood of a child having the MARA subtype. Now, clinical actions pre-pregnancy are the application of existing interventions, one of which is intravenous immunoglobulin, the new biologics, these FcRn antagonists that can actually reduce or prevent the transmission of these antibodies and prevent the effect of these antibodies on the developing fetus. Early childhood, the early behavioral interventions that have been shown to produce clinically significant improvements in IQ, behavior, language, cognitive development in children as young as 6 months old. These will come together to reduce the severity and potentially prevent the MARA subtype, thereby decreasing overall prevalence of autism by up to 20%. Now, we're differentiated because we're the only platform that provides the earliest detection, both pre-pregnancy and at birth, and the earliest clinical actionable interventions, both behaviorally and therapeutically. So our goal is to test every woman prior to pregnancy and every child to birth. And we have multiple commercial pathways to get there in a $15 billion total available market. First, starting out with the upper right left-hand side, the high likelihood testing, which is a $1 billion market of a woman with at least one autistic child, moving next to the $2 billion market of a woman who has a child who fails to meet developmental milestones or has well-known autism risk factors during pregnancy, such as age. And then moving to the lower right-hand side, which is pharmaceutical and biotechnology partnerships to expand the use of existing therapeutic interventions. Now, we're going to be on the market through the CLIA laboratory developed route in 2025 with 5.1 million in revenue, targeting that high likelihood market of 1.4 million women, moving then into 32 million in year 3, 2027, into the increased likelihood market of over 27 million customers, with an average revenue per test about $750, direct pay initially, that will be both consumers and employer-sponsored health plans, and then moving towards the more generalized third-party reimbursement insurance market at a $550 revenue per test. Now, our go-to-market strategy is going to focus first on telemedicine for 2 reasons. The first is that I have been in this industry, the autism testing market, for over 15 years, and I know the challenges that families have of getting their child with developmental disabilities to the doctor. So we're going to bring the doctor to them through telemedicine. The second reason is this is a highly engaged group of consumers that you can reach with lower cost, targeted social media marketing strategies, and then moving towards the direct sales with very targeted providers. We got a great team. Our chief science advisor, this is her life's work, Judy Vanderwater, out of UC Davis. I've been a CEO from startup to commercialization to strategic exit with 15 years in the autism testing market, raising over 60 million in venture capital. Our vice chairman, Jim Woody, developed the first therapeutic antibody at Centocor and Roche, and Vince Forlenza, who's a former chairman and CEO of Becton Dickinson. So again, we're raising 5 million seed equity alongside about $1 million in convertible notes to complete the product development, fund the commercial launch in the second half of next year. We've completed key milestones with our $4 million in notes, including GMP level protein production and manufacturing. We've secured our lab partnership for assay validation, and we've attracted value-add institutional investors, including the Autism Impact Fund. Our use of funds over the next 24 to 30 months are going to be directed heavily to getting the test on the market, complete analytical clinical validation, brand positioning, starting work with payers to develop the clinical evidence, and then the initial commercialization. So in summary, we have a great fundamental autism breakthrough here in autoimmune, pre-symptomatic detection with proprietary approaches, clinically actionable intervention that exists today. We have highly engaged customers with multiple commercial pathways to test every woman prior to pregnancy and every child at birth with a market-tested team. And again, $6 million will complete the development, fund the initial launch, to get our vision, which is a world in which the most severe effects of autism do not occur. So thanks again, Susie, and to Ignite, and happy to take any questions.
Great presentation, Michael. Everybody's shy today. I don't see any questions in the Q&A. Again, please feel free to add some if you'd like. And with that, we will move right on to AIM medical robotics.
All righty, hopefully the screen's showing up all right here.
Yep.
So thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate it. My name is Greg Fisher. I'm the CEO and founder of AIM Medical Robotics, and we're bringing to market our first product, which is really going to revolutionize neurosurgery by enabling real-time soft tissue imaging during stereotactic neurosurgery procedures to guarantee that you do these procedures the way that you intended to. So as we heard in some of the earlier presentations here, there's a tremendous need for placing electrodes, instrumentation, therapeutics in the brain. And there's a whole host of applications where this can be useful. This can include brain tumors where you're trying to do biopsies, where you're trying to do ablation, where we're trying to place electrodes or neurostimulators, where we want to do injection and particular targeted drug delivery, including cell therapies and gene therapies, as well as shunts and other ways of dealing with hemorrhages and traumatic injuries as well. So there's a huge need for this. But it all comes down to location, location, location. You need to make sure these electrodes, these instruments, these therapies are put in exactly the right spot. And as you're doing these procedures, almost in every single procedure, high resolution MRI is taken. They use this to identify the targets. But once they've identified those targets, they really have no way to identify, is that target in the right spot as I'm doing this intervention during a procedure? Because you can imagine in an orthopedic procedure, if you do everything relative to the bony anatomy, that bony anatomy stays relatively rigid. If you're working with soft tissue in the brain, and there's other parts of the body where this also applies, the targets within the brain will actually shift during the surgical procedure, whether it's due to loss of cerebral spinal fluid or other factors, including, for example, swelling or air getting in the brain. They all cause motion of these targets. So our goal is how can we overcome these inconsistencies and high revision rates, which for neurostimulator placement, let's say for Parkinson's disease, there's reports that it's as high as 34% of these electrodes that are put in are mispositioned, and they either have to be removed and repositioned and corrected, or they caused complications, or they just didn't have the clinical effect that you need. So there's a tremendous need for putting these instrumentation in exactly the right spot. So our solution is an MRI compatible device. You can call it a robot, you can call it an actuated version of a stereotactic frame. It really looks and feels like what the surgeons have been trained on to use in a traditional operating room, but it works entirely within the MRI scanner. And what this allows us to do is perform these procedures using the imaging modality of choice that all surgeons use for preoperative planning. Almost every one of them uses for confirmation after a surgical procedure, but we can use it during the procedure. And what that does is it allows us to guarantee you actually hit those targets during a procedure, because you will know before you close off that patient, before you take them out of the operating room or before you take them out of the scanner, that you did, based on high resolution MR imaging, that therapy, whether it's an electrode or whether it's an ablation or whether it's an injection, it was delivered in exactly the right spot in the brain where you wanted to, relative to the soft tissue and anatomical targets. So where we're at now is we've raised a $3.4 million seed round, and we're currently seeking a $5 million Series A. This is going to get us through first-in-human trials, which we anticipate doing next year. This work is based on about $15 million and 15 years of non-dilutive funding through NIH-funded research. Before joining AIM, I've been a faculty member at WPI. I received my PhD at Johns Hopkins. Before that, we've done a substantial amount of research work. And then since then, I've jumped in with both feet, full-time CEO of the company, and taken a leave from my university position so that we can really bring this technology forward. All of this technology has been exclusively licensed into AIM Medical Robotics. We have a number of issued patents, as well as several families that are currently pending for additional patents, as well as a number of disclosures that are currently pending. What we see is that this allows faster procedures by making procedures where patients can be asleep as opposed to having them be awake while we're doing microelectrode recording and all sorts of other hacks, if you will, to make sure they're in the right spot. We can make these procedures to the point that you can do 2 to 3 procedures a day where you typically could have only done 1 before. So that's really good for patients because they're, essentially in surgery for a much shorter time, and they can be asleep. So that'll overcome patient hesitancy, which makes a lot of patients that are eligible not do deep brain stimulation for Parkinson's and a whole bunch of other related cases. And then by doing this 2 to 3 procedures a day, that makes it much more profitable for hospitals. It's really great for the surgeons. So it's really a win across the board. Our initial target market is going to be neurostimulation for Parkinson's disease, and then that same procedures also for dystonia, essential tremor, severe OCD, and some other diseases. But then there's also a huge number of clinical trials out there right now for new use cases for deep brain stimulation. So this is a tremendous growth within the DBS market that we see. Previous iterations of the same technology have been used in human trials already for prostate applications. And as I said, we're gearing up to do clinical trials with our current platform. And as we move forward, while we're targeting neurosurgery for our first in-market device, in the future, we see this as a platform technology where we can really do targeted needle placements anywhere in the body. We've put together, what I would consider as an all-star team here that covers all of our bases from the business side, the clinical side, and the engineering side. So as I mentioned, I have a PhD in engineering. I've been a faculty member in the robotics engineering program before jumping into the company here. All of the technology that we developed has again been exclusively licensed into this, and I've led a substantial amount of NIH-funded research projects, as well as founded the Practice Point MedTech Accelerator, which is a state-funded facility before jumping in here. Dr. Julie Politzis at the time was a faculty member at the University of Massachusetts Medical School. She's a neurosurgeon. She's a co-founder. She was also a co-PI on much of the NIH-funded work that developed this, and she's the chair of our medical advisory board. Bob Cathcart is the chairman of our board, who has essentially a lifetime of sales of medical devices and robotics, as well as leadership experience in other startup medtech companies. Jonathan Sakier is a serial entrepreneur who has been developing these types of devices pretty much since the beginning of surgical robots. In fact, he was the founder of Computer Motion, which is one of the first commercial surgical robots that ultimately merged in with Intuitive. And Greg Cole was actually the first PhD student out of my lab, who was one of the original inventors of this technology, went on to have lives in multiple different companies where he's gained tremendous amount of experience in building teams, commercializing med devices, and IP portfolios. And he's been acting as an advisor for the company. And once we get funding, I anticipate him coming on full time as well. Our board of directors, we've added 3 more people if you look on the bottom row here. Alex Wilson is with IQ Capital, who's the lead on our upcoming A round. He's been very active in all of our board meetings and very productive. Sontag Foundation is an investor with Scott Davis here representing them, who is a cancer research foundation in particular for brain cancer. And Samantha Suri has a tremendous amount of experience in medical device commercialization, both working with the large companies as well as taking small startups all the way through the commercialization efforts. And then we also have a really great clinical advisory board that Dr. Julie Politzis has put together for us, where we have top-notch institutions. We've worked really closely with these folks to get the voice of the customer, observing procedures, getting feedback, and really making sure the system that we're designing is really informed by the clinical need. And our focus now is taking all of the research that we've done under the academic work, under the NIH-funded work, and figuring out how can we already shook out the technical risk. Now let's create a commercial product that really meets the customer need. And that's what AIM is focused on. So as I mentioned, we've done a lot of this work under NIH funding. We've created MRI-compatible surgical platforms for prostate applications as well as neuro applications. The prostate one has actually already been in a 30-patient human trial at the Brigham and Women's Hospital here in Boston. We've already ran swine studies as well as cadaver studies with the new commercial prototype for our neurosurgery system, and we're in the process of bringing this forward. So just to see what it looks like, this is a swine study using a robotic platform where we were doing thermal ablation with a needle-based ablation device. As far as I'm aware, this is the first time such a procedure has been done 100% within the MRI suite, where we did planning within the MRI. The robot acted as a drill guide to guarantee that the drill trajectory was exactly aligned correctly. Then confirmation of that alignment, delivery of the electrode using, or in this case, an ultrasound-based applicator within the MRI, confirming it's in the right spot, and then actually using real-time temperature maps from the MRI to guarantee that you got the appropriate ablation volumes. Moving into our commercial platform, we just recently ran this study, and it's very exciting that we took our latest commercial device. This is pretty much the one that we're going to be using for our first in human trials, and we ran an entirely MRI-guided procedure for deep brain stimulation, which, as I said, is our initial core application, or at least beachhead market. And we did that both in the MRI suite. And then we also did this in the operating room because we're not naive to think that day one everybody's going to do every DBS procedure inside the MRI scanner. So we really see this way of launching these so that we can do in the MRI, but we can also do this in the operating room with still tremendous improvements in the workflow, reducing human error. You can get some accuracy improvements, even though we don't get the real-time MR. And the cool side effect, if you will, of having a plastic robot that's MRI compatible is it actually happens to be completely radiolucent. So we can get beautiful images of the skull and the instruments that we're delivering using even pretty basic C-arms and 3D cone beam CT reconstructions. So where we're at right now is we're raising this Series A round. The point behind this is we're getting our first in human trials. These are going to be a single site IRB approved non-significant risk study. And the point of this is really build that investor confidence, build that clinical confidence, and get feedback as we're moving forward on this so that we can really make sure that we're aligned with what we need. In parallel, we're going to be bringing everything under design controls, redesigning this platform. And then, I anticipate really two potential places where there are exits for investors. One will be after we've had our initial first in human trials. We really see there's a great opportunity to partner and possibly get acquired by some of the large strategics. And there's three primary channels there: the imaging system companies, the navigation software companies, and then there's the instrumentation companies of what we're actually delivering. But the most likely scenario in my mind is at that point, we're going to raise a second round, bring this product through commercialization, bring it through V&V testing, get our FDA approvals, and we anticipate initial launch primarily to our first customers, which will likely be academic sites in mid 2025. And then after that, ramping up for a full US and ultimately international production. So what are we comparing to? We have the majority of procedures these days are done using traditional frame-based stereotaxy. So as much as we talk about robots and navigation systems and all these cool technologies, the large majority of these are done with a big metal frame attached to your head. You do surgical planning on a navigation system. It spits out a few numbers. You yell them across the room to a surgeon who's going to sit there with a sterile screwdriver and adjust this frame. There's a lot of room for human error, and just in general, it's far from an ideal procedure. So what's out there these days? Well, some folks have tried to replace that frame with a robot. That's awesome, but you still have that fundamental problem of you have no real-time soft tissue imaging. So no matter how good your robot is, how good your tracking system is, if you're tracking it relative to the skull, you're still not guaranteeing you're hitting the right soft tissue targets. And then there's some groups that have tried to, for example, create manual plastic frames that can go on the head, and they absolutely justify our value proposition of why you want real-time MRI. And that's why people use these devices, but there's a tremendous amount of room for improvement in terms of the accuracy, the exposure, the cost, and other limitations to using these devices. So we're really trying to be the first people that can take robots, put them inside MRIs in a practical way to guide these surgical procedures. And as I said, our initial indication is deep brain stimulation. It's a large and also substantially growing market. And we feel that you can get almost a 10x increase in DBS cases simply by overcoming patient hesitancy. A large percentage of patients just don't want to do DBS because they don't want to be awake for an entire day procedure while they're getting poked in the brain, and still end up with a chance that almost a third of them may not get the efficacy they want and have to have repeat procedures. And then on top of that, there's a large number of FDA approved indications, all 5 of the ones listed here: Parkinson's, dystonia, essential tremor, epilepsy, and severe OCD. And then there's also a slew of new and emerging applications, and all of the main vendors for DBS systems have put tremendous effort and investment lately into doubling down on their technology because they also see growth in this space. In addition to neurostimulation, just to throw it out there, we have neurostimulation. We can do brain cancer ablation, stereo EEG, and I really see this drug delivery because there's a huge push for targeted cell therapy and gene therapy injections that need to go in that right spot. And that's one of the goals that we're focused on, is how can we either place an instrument or deliver a therapy or take a biopsy in exactly the right spot there. So bottom line is, can you imagine something that's going to let you see inside the body while you're doing this and guarantee that you always hit that target every single time and you don't end that procedure till you're in exactly where you want to be? Be very fast, have a highly desirable workflow where you can have this sitting in a box in a closet to on the bed of any MRI scanner with no customization of the scanner, and under 30 minutes. Be very clinically friendly and easy to use, very streamlined workflow. And then also enhance the ability to do more procedures with reduced complications. So it's very appealing to the patients, the surgeons, the hospitals, and the health system in general. So I want to thank everybody, for your attention, and I encourage you to check out our website, both the company LinkedIn as well as my personal LinkedIn. and we have a few videos up on our YouTube channel. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Greg. Unfortunately, we are at time. It looks like there are a couple of comments in the, oh, never mind. I think we're good. No questions at this time, but we're going to go ahead and move right on to Deep Look Medical.
Great, thanks so much. I'm just sharing my screen, getting it ready for you guys.
Perfect.
Great. Well, hi, everybody. I'm Marissa Fayer, the CEO of Deep Look Medical, where we are enhancing medical imaging with revolutionary software. I think everybody knows somebody who's had some sort of medical image, whether it's a mammography, a CT, an MRI, an ultrasound. In the US, there's about getting close to 300 million annual diagnostic medical imaging screens conducted. And of those, it's diagnosing just about 2 million cancers every single year. Mammography is a really large size and chunk of that annual diagnostic medical imaging, with over just about 40 million annual mammograms that are happening. The issue, one of the bigger issues, is that 50%, 40 to 50% of all women have dense breasts, which means they have a 2 to 3x times rate of having breast cancer. And unfortunately, because of the density, you typically can't see it. With any later stage diagnosis of cancer, there's an additional cost not only to the patients, but to the insurance, to the hospitals, over $100,000. So when you catch it early, obviously far less of a cost, far less of an impact to the patients. So at Deep Look, we're envisioning a future where there's data-driven imaging. We go from, it was on film, then it was on the computer, it's digital, and now it's going to be in the palm of your hands with very specific information that's accurate, efficient, and leads to personalized care. And this will happen throughout the entire imaging and treatment pathway. So for Deep Look Medical, we have our first product, DL Precise, which is already FDA cleared. It is a workflow tool that helps radiologists. Currently, they have to visually find the lesion, circle it, draw the outer lesion themselves, all with their mouse, this mouse that's on the screen, and measure it. They don't have an automated tool to be able to do that in one click, but DL Precise is. We fit directly into their workflow. It's automated and manual with one click. Radiologists are still driving. They're still driving the bus over here. They're still making the images. They're still reviewing them. It's still their decision. We are not decision support. We are a visual workflow tool currently. And what this does is this advances how the radiologists and the oncologists can make better, more informed care decisions. Our product, DL Precise, the first one, our first flagship product, is FDA cleared across all imaging pathways. So mammography, ultrasound, CT, and MRI, and across all soft tumor mass health conditions, which is very exciting. We have an incredibly strong pipeline. As I said, our FDA cleared DL Precise product is a first product. It's based on deterministic software. So we're at the forefront of AI, the most basic versions of AI, which with fixed code, and it's based on our patented shape recognition software. And what it does is, as you see before, it measures the shape and the color and shows this color is representative of the density and what is happening inside the potential lesion. We have a very short-term roadmap and very early next year, in the next few months, to go forward with decision support technology. We're also expanding, and currently we're expanding into other areas beyond breast, which includes lung, liver, prostate, thyroid, brain, and we're doing that through our partners. And additionally, we're going forward with morphology matching that is layered on from very trusted. It's the next step into AI, which everyone's excited about, which is fed by a known database from Emory University, which is the largest in the world. And then in the future, we're working towards precision imaging and precision medicine to give radiologists and oncologists everything that they need at their fingertips. We all know healthcare is broken, and it's time to fix it. The global imaging market in diagnostic is very large. And the reason we started with breast imaging, because of the oncology diagnostic imaging and of the entire diagnostic imaging, it is actually the largest individual segment. What we do is we partner with all of the different types of companies, such as AI developers, PACS, radiologists, electronic medical records, and our information can be immediately saved. We do this through our partners because we don't collect the PHI. We don't collect patient information. It happens directly on their screen. So we as Deep Look do not see this information. There is no external back and forth to us. We're the missing piece. All of these other technologies need to be there. The imaging modalities, the ultrasounds, the MRIs, the X-rays, the CTs, the MRIs, they all need to be there. They need to do their job. All of these existing CAD tools that are already in the market, they need to do their job because they need to identify the areas that potentially the radiologists need to review. When it comes to breast imaging and lung and liver, there needs to be some risk scoring so that it prioritizes which images and what areas get reviewed first. These things need to happen, but there is nobody currently doing the multimodal advanced image augmentation related to measurement, segmentation, and visualization. That does not exist. We're a plug-in tool that works with all of these and so many others to fit right into the solution. This is not an external screen that somebody else has to go to. It happens directly in their already existing workflows. And we're really advancing right now. We're going commercial in 2 weeks, so wish me luck. And we're doing this because there's such rapid advancements in AI. We already have distribution agreements with massive channel partners. We have FDA clearance. There's so much information and adoption of AI, and radiology is the first market that everybody is adopting AI technologies into, which is exciting. And we have some really exciting, I can't tell you yet, stay tuned, some compelling evidence that's scientifically proven at independent organizations and independent research organizations that will be coming out in the next few months for scientific advisors that have led it for us. Speaking of partners, we already have 4 commercial partner agreements in place. And as I said, we are commercial launching in 2 weeks, 2 days after Thanksgiving, well, the Sunday of Thanksgiving, which is very exciting for us through our commercial partners at the largest trade show of the year. We already have clinical agreements with both Emory University, White Plains Hospital, which is part of Montefiore, and several more that we're looking to announce very shortly. We're part of the ecosystem. We're part of this breast imaging. We're part of the American Cancer Society. We're a part of the radiologists. We're part of this community. And so we're also going to be revenue generating with our commercial partners at the end of this year and really kicking in next year. Way we commercialize is through channel partners. We're a small startup. What we're doing is we're partnering with the bigger organizations that already have distribution agreements in each hospitals. We're going to utilize their sales teams to get in as an additional product that they're able to sell on their suite of software. And then in the future, we can start individually having reports at each of these significant hospitals. Lots of exciting things that are happening. We have a very large commercial agreement that we've just, we will be announcing actually end of this week. We're going into, so we're cleared in the US. We're going into further markets with our FDA clearance, which includes UK, Israel, Canada. We're also going to be going into Mexico, Singapore, and a few others. We have commercial launches coming up, as I said. We're right now looking to close our seed round, and we are planning our CE submission early next year as well. So it's a really exciting time for us. So just about our team quick, which I'm super proud of. I am the CEO. I come out of the medical imaging space. I've been in women's health for over 20 years. I developed the 3D mammography system at Hologic and handled several of their mergers and acquisitions. And so I was brought in, I'm not a founder, I was brought in by the executive team about a year ago, a little over a year ago. And we have retained one of our co-founders on our executive team, Greg Bellinger, which is great, and have brought in some significant expertise on the engineering side. 38-year GE executive who led the entire ultrasound division as our head of engineering, and our chief medical officer, Charlotte Moser, who's Harvard, MIT, is a CMO, a previous CEO of several different companies in the oncology space. And our CFO comes out of all the great institutions of finance. So we're really excited about this team. One thing I just don't have here is it's in our amendment or our appendix is our great board and also our advisors. We have and scientific advisors. We are in the process of even augmenting our executive team, our advisors, our board members to make sure that we reinforce who we are going forward. And so right now we are raising a seed plus round on a convertible note. We will be closing this by the end of the year. And then in early 2024, in and around January 8th, we will be announcing our Series A raise of $4 million. We just want to increase and continue our regulatory approvals. We want to reinforce our technology with our second and third products out into the market. We want to make sure we have the best of the best teams. And honestly, we are going for an acquisition towards the end of this year. And so it's very exciting for us to get ready for that. We look to be acquired from one of either some of our partners and or other strategics that are in the imaging space where our technology can be the most beneficial to the patient. It's time to change and visualize better healthcare. This is a really large market opportunity, about $40 billion of this entire market. We are already FDA cleared and patent protected. We are going commercial literally, as I said, in 2 weeks, and probably because I'm super nervous and excited, so I keep saying it. We have a great management team. We have a really exciting pipeline. Most of it is already, the second product is about 90 to 95% already developed, and we're refining it now. And it's an exciting time for Deep Look, and we're raising some capital to help augment our success, and additionally looking forward to strategic partners in the future. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. And congratulations on your upcoming milestone. That's so exciting. I'm thrilled for you.
Thank you so much.
Unfortunately, we're out of time for questions. I don't see any in the Q&A, but please feel free to put some in there. And with that, we're going to jump straight to Ned Medical.
Great. Hey, everybody. How are you? Can you see my slides okay? Great. Excellent. Well, my name is Rich Yazbek, and I'm the president and CEO of Ned Medical. We are a Boston-based company that was launched last year in collaboration with two successful physician entrepreneurs who have had multiple prior exits. So the problem that we're trying to solve at Ned Medical is initially liver cancer. Liver cancer can come in two forms. One is a primary liver cancer. The other one is metastatic or metastases from other primary cancers. The liver, being one of the body's natural filters, tends to harbor things that happen in other parts of the body. And so it's very common for other types of cancers to present metastases. In fact, 70% of metastatic breast cancer cases involve the liver, and 70% of colorectal cancer patients develop liver metastases during their disease progression. So it's a huge problem in the US, and it's an even bigger problem across the globe. In fact, in the latest NIH report to the nation, liver cancer was actually one of only 4 cancers left that has shown no improvement at all in death rates in the US for both men and women. And in one of the recent JAMA Oncology publications, liver cancer is projected to cost the global economy $1.7 trillion by 2050. So a huge problem, both economic and from a disease perspective. Today's main solutions for treating unresectable liver tumors is within the world of interventional oncology. Interventional oncology is one of 4 pillars of oncology care. These are typically image-guided therapies that are delivered locally at the tumor site. And the typical therapies that are used are embolization therapies, which involves blend embolization, embolization, which delivers chemotherapeutics locally at the tumor site, and also radioembolization, which delivers radiation locally at the tumor site as well. All of these therapies are delivered using a microcatheter that is placed in the branch of the hepatic artery that is feeding blood to the tumor. All of these therapies are still monotherapies. They only deliver one type of therapy, despite the fact that in oncology care, in general, everyone uses combination therapies because it's shown that combination therapies are really what move the needle in terms of patient outcomes. And what we continue to see in both research and in cases is that patient outcomes continue to be limited with these therapies because you continue to run into tumor hypoxia issues, where a part of the tumor has very low oxygen concentration and therefore is not responding to both the chemotherapeutic and the radiation that's being delivered locally. So it's a huge problem, not a lot of great solutions out there. And so we really felt that we could make a big difference and that it was time to do so. Okay, so our mission is really to transform these embolization therapies from palliative treatments to curative intent treatment. And a lot of these therapies today are being used to either control the size of the tumor so that the patient remains on the transplant list, or to allow the patient a few more months of life to take care of their personal arrangements. And so it's really not being approached, these diseases are not being approached with the perspective of a curative intent, and we're looking to implement that and change that approach and that philosophy. Historically, these treatments, especially for radioembolization treatments, which is what we're initially focused on, it's always been a thing of compromise. So on one side, you have commercially available products that have really good radiation activity, which physicians tend to favor, but really poor coverage, meaning that you're not delivering enough of these particles to really encapsulate the tumor and deliver radiation in a uniformly distributed way around the tumor. On the other side, you have other commercial products that have very low radiation activity level or lower, but have fantastic coverage. It's always been sort of this compromised approach to radioembolization. What we're looking to do is that we've developed a particle, our radioembolization particle, that combines the best of both worlds. It gives fantastic coverage and also elevated activity levels. In addition, we've been able to design and manufacture our technology using some proprietary materials that allows us to optimize the size and the density, allows us to have deeper penetration into the tumor vasculature, which helps with tumor targeting. It has the elevated emission per particle I discussed previously. But lastly, and probably one of the most important things that we're doing is that our particle is able to not only deliver radiation, but also carry a drug therapeutic payload and administer that concurrently with the radiation. So it really becomes a combination therapy. It allows the physicians to be able to fine-tune not only the level of radiation that's being delivered, but also the type of therapeutic and the amount of therapeutic that gets delivered locally. And we believe this combination therapy will transform radioembolization into a curative intent treatment. Okay, the market opportunity is really substantial. In the US alone, liver-targeted embolization therapy, both for primary liver cancer and metastasized cancers in the liver, is about a $5.2 billion opportunity. It's multiple of that across the world. And then we've also identified additional indications that we would be able to serve, and that includes gliomas, lung cancer, and prostate cancer. This is the information on this slide is based on a very in-depth, comprehensive effort that we took on with the healthcare practice of Deloitte, where we were able to look at the market opportunity, the size, the reimbursement, and as well as these additional diseases that we could be transforming in addition to the liver space. Okay, our commercial pathway is multiple commercial pathways, which is pretty exciting for us because we've been able to develop a technology that allows us to have multiple products using the same materials and the same manufacturing processes. So our initial commercial pathway is actually a bland embolization or vascular embolization particle that is 2 to 2.5 years to FDA approval. It is a 510(k) process, and it only requires an animal study. This gives us an initial entry into the market. It'll be followed by our radioembolization indication, This is a PMA, smaller sized clinical trial, and allows both embolization and radiation delivery, but also gives the optionality to deliver therapeutics. And that's a 4.5 to 5 years for FDA approval. And then the third market segment that we were creating, we call it the bioradioembolic, which is a pre-mixed combination of our particle with a drug. So it's a drug device combination that would come later as a unique combination device. Okay. The reimbursement is robust and existing. It's actually one of the things that has driven a lot of interest in the space and in our company from strategics. There's the reimbursement amount is about $18,000 per dose. It costs us probably $600 to $700 to create a single dose of our therapy. So it's a very healthy reimbursement. It is an outpatient setting, which is also preferable. And if you look at historically of the existing products out there commercially, through financial filings, you'll see that they're running at about 80 to 90% profit margin. So very robust market opportunity. It also, for strategics, it's also attractive because they also sell their other devices, catheters, introducer sheaths, guide wires, all of these additional add-on devices that they sell for this procedure that makes the whole procedure in general just a very attractive opportunity, economic opportunity for them. There have been multiple acquisitions in the past, or multi-billion-dollar acquisitions, and there's only one other startup in the space, including us. They're based up in Nova Scotia. They're further along later on in clinical trials, and they've received very robust strategic investments from both Varian and Medtronic as well. Okay, we are a very experienced and seasoned team. It's myself. I've been in the industry for over 22 years. I've launched about 25 medical devices into the market. This is my fourth startup that I've launched. The previous one I took IPO in 2021 at a $500 million valuation. Andrew and his business partner, who are both doctors, are friends of mine that I've met through my career, and we've developed a strong friendship. They reached out to me to launch this company with them, and they have also done previous startups. They're serial physician entrepreneurs, and they've had 2 previous exits as well. So very successful, strong background across the team. We're joined by a world-class medical advisory board members. When you talk about radioembolization and liver cancer and interventional oncology, these 3 guys are the 3 names that always come up every single time. And so we're really fortunate to have them believe in our technology, believe in our company, and have been very supportive of what we're doing. Okay, we are raising a $1.8 million seed round. We've closed $660,000 in the last 8 weeks, which is very exciting for us. And we're having discussions with multiple entities, strategic and VCs, to help close the rest of our rounds. So we're all, both things are moving along really nicely. And I think that's it.
Awesome. Fantastic presentation, Rich. Thank you so much.
Sure,
We don't have any questions in the chat, but I will keep an eye out for them. And last but not least today, we have Rhinus saying thank you so much. Go ahead and take it away.
Thank you very much for the intro. And good morning, everyone. Good afternoon to the folks that are international. My name is Anna, and together with my co-founder Bridget, we are developing Rhinus to eliminate the barriers to effectively treat chronic rhinosinusitis. Like a sinus infection that doesn't go away, chronic rhinosinusitis symptoms are a burden that keeps its sufferers from going to work, keeping up with their day-to-day tasks, and getting quality of sleep. Some patients have described their symptoms of CRS as the feeling of having their head trapped in a vise, or a brick wall in their nose that doesn't let them breathe. And what is worse, these patients would try many medications, but soon realize that nothing would help them. As you can see in some of these quotes from patient interviews, the burden of living with CRS does not only affect their physical health, but also their quality of life, and therefore their mental health. They describe their sinus infections as a cause of sleepless nights, stress, anxiety, and making it very difficult for them to show up for work and be really productive. Some patients emphasize the fact that they feel self-conscious about their symptoms when they are in public, even more after COVID, where they feel that they need to explain that they are actually not contagious, but they just have the congestion or runny nose because of the recurrent symptoms of CRS. If this is the first time that you hear the term chronic rhinosinusitis, don't worry. We like to describe it as the most common condition that you've never heard of. In fact, CRS is the reality for over 30 million of people in the US, taking more of 20 million visits of all the doctors in the US and an annual cost of $20 billion in loss of productivity. CRS is more than just a runny nose or a mild headache. It is a chronic inflammation or even complete blockage of the sinuses and nasal passages, causing painful symptoms that never seem to end. For these patients, nasal antibiotics and steroids are the most common first-line treatments, but these are very uncomfortable and sometimes fail. The mainstay of CRS treatments, antibiotic rinses, often fail because they can't deeply penetrate these biofilms, which are microscopic layers that act as a living fortress of inflammation where pathogens can accumulate in the sinuses, and it happens to over 60% of patients with CRS. These intricate structures are created by some bacteria to facilitate their own growth and protect against outside agents like antibiotics. By isolating the sinus lining, biofilms can also cause significant inflammation, which is associated with exacerbated symptoms of CRS. To solve this root cause of chronic rhinosinusitis, we are developing Rhinus, which is a simple in-office-based treatment that eliminates biofilms in the sinuses and nasal passages and allows antibiotics to be effective. The procedure altogether would take around 15 minutes and disrupts the patient's treatment pathway. Currently, CRS patients go from being diagnosed with chronic rhinosinusitis after several weeks of symptoms and trying their first line of treatments like nasal rinses, steroids, and antibiotics. Unfortunately, these treatments often fail, and patients start a quest for medications that will relieve their symptoms. This process can take from months to years and escalating costs from cents to thousands of dollars. After trying multiple medications, a good portion of this population will ultimately turn to surgery to manage their symptoms. However, only a fraction of these are eligible due to the age, comorbidities, and that the root cause of their sinus infection is actually these biofilms that cannot be removed through a surgery. As a consequence, sinus surgery has a low rate of success, and about half of the patients will end up in revision surgeries or trialing again and failing new medications. In an alternative treatment pathway, Rhinus fits after the failure of first-line medications and before escalating to a surgery, which often doesn't work well for this patient group altogether. Treatment with Rhinus is brief, minimally invasive, and targets biofilms, which would be the root cause for these chronic rhinosinusitis patients. Rhinus fills the gap in CRS treatments by being more effective than antibiotics and steroids alone, and more affordable and less invasive than sinus surgery. This is an important point here because the cost of having chronic rhinosinusitis is a burden on its own for these patients and their insurance providers. CRS is estimated to be a $14 billion industry in direct healthcare costs, and this becomes even more concentrated for those who seek sinus surgery. At an average of $11,000 for procedure, this patient group is spending around $2 billion for results that might not be lasting. We are initially focusing on this group of patients that are so desperate with their symptoms that they are seeking surgery. And the costs that these patients incur are just the tip of the iceberg. This number can be bigger if we add the identifiable group of patients that decide not to seek surgery due to comorbidities, age, and other conditions. As I mentioned before, we are starting with CRS, but this is only the tip of the iceberg. The technology that we are developing at Rhinus can also be translated for other ENT infections, including sinusitis, which is the precursor of CRS, ear infections, and tonsillitis, which overall represents an additional $8 billion market. Our team is a blend of innovation and expertise. We are two engineers with backgrounds in medical devices from industry and academia both in large and small companies. I am Anna, and my co-founder Bridget and I met as Harvard Medical Fellows in the Health Tech Fellowship. We were working through the biodesign innovation process from which we developed Rhinus. We are supported by a dedicated group of advisors with clinicians, business, and engineer strategists. And we couldn't think of a better team and environment to translate Rhinus from a concept to a life-changing tool. Since April, we have been awarded funding from Harvard Medical School and Mass Pioneer to keep working on our idea. We have proven the treatment mechanism through feasibility studies at Mass Pioneer Microbiology Laboratory with Dr. Paulo Obispo, and we started the design and development of a minimal viable product in collaboration with the Applied Physics Department at Harvard Engineering School. In the next months, we will conduct the safety and efficacy studies and develop a minimum viable product to get ready for clinical trials. We will also seek consulting advisors and regulatory and reimbursement advisors to solidify the regulatory and reimbursement strategies. In order to maintain this phase, we are raising $200,000 to prepare for clinical studies and develop our device. To accelerate our progress, we are also looking for ENT clinicians that are interested in trialing novel therapies and an experienced network of founders and investors like the one that we are founding today here in the Ignite program. If you're an industry professional with experience in developing ENT devices or a medical device investors, or only if you believe in our mission at Rhinus and would like to learn more, please don't hesitate to reach out to us, either here in the chat or also through the following QR code that I'm going to share. We are Rhinus, and we are eliminating the barriers to effective CRS treatment. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All the presenters today were so amazing. I wish we could do this for another 2 hours with so many great companies. This is fantastic. Thank you guys so much for participating today, and thank you to all of our guests that came. I don't know if Rachel wants to say a few words before we exit.
Nope, just a big thank you to you and to everybody for hanging out with us for 2 hours. I was always impressed by the quality of the presenters. Amazing work, everyone. And again, thank you to everybody for staying. And Susie, thank you for being an excellent moderator and keeping us on schedule.
Yeah, no problem. Happy to do it. Thank you guys so much. The recording will be recorded, and I don't know if
yes.
are you going to send that out or make it available?
Yeah, we'll get that out to everybody, hopefully today, if not tomorrow, for everyone who registered. And then to all our presenters, we'll make sure we get you a copy of any questions that came in so that you have those to move forward.
Fantastic.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Have a great day.
Thanks, Rachel.
Goodbye.
Bye, everyone.